Welcome to the Period Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Donovan, a registered dietitian and period recovery expert who has been where you are. This podcast is for the active, high-achieving woman who feels like she's doing everything right in her life, but her body isn't responding. Whether you've just discovered you have hypothalamic amenorrhea or you feel like you've already tried it all in regards to getting your period back and restoring your fertility, or you're on your journey to become a mom, you're in the right place. Here, we go beyond just getting your period back. We talk about fueling your body, regulating your nervous system, redefining your relationship with food and exercise, and stepping into the version of you that feels strong, feminine, and fully you. This is your safe space for honest conversations, expert guidance, and the deeper work that creates lasting change. So you can take the stress and the guess out, restore and keep your period and your fertility and your connection to yourself. Get ready to be inspired, get ready to feel seen, and finally get your period and life back. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Period Recovery Podcast. And if you've ever been told that your missing period was normal because you're active or an athlete, or maybe you just convinced yourself if you trained a little bit harder, ate a little bit cleaner, or lost just a few more pounds, that eventually everything would fall into place and you'd be your healthiest self. Well, today's episode is for you. I'm sitting down with one of my former clients, GNic, whose story is, I know, one that so many are going to see themselves in. She spent 14 years without a cycle and came to me when she was in her later 30s. She was a professional dancer where one comment about her body completely changed the way she viewed herself. And what desired to be a successful career slowly turned into years of restriction over exercising and believing that being smaller was the price she had to pay to live her dream. So like so many women told by their doctor it was normal, dismissed because she wasn't thin enough to have hypothalamic amenorrhea, and even been told to come back when she wanted to have children, she did not want to take that as an answer any longer. So this is where her story takes an incredible turn. After years of believing pregnancy may never even happen for her, after recovering her period and doing the difficult work of rebuilding trust with her body, she received the surprise of a lifetime. In fact, I was the very first person she texted when she found out she was pregnant. So whether you've been missing your period for 6 months, 6 years, want to get pregnant, or don't want to get pregnant, I hope this episode reminds you that your body is never, ever beyond hope. And healing isn't just about getting your period back. It's about getting your life back. So let's dive into my conversation with GNic. Hi, GNic. Welcome to the podcast, and also happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited you're here. We have kept in touch over the years, but we finally are able to get around to recording a podcast on your very special day.
Yes, this has been a long time coming.
Yes. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just record a podcast and catch up. GNic and I were chatting about a good half hour before this and just catching up on life because so I don't want to say so many of the women I work with, but I love keeping in touch. And GNic and I have kept in touch. And one of the most amazing things that has happened to GNic in 2025 was the birth of your son.
Yes, I had my my baby boy, Giovanni, in August of 2025. And to say it was a miracle is an understatement, but I'm sure we'll get to all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to actually I love starting sometimes and giving away the tea before we actually get into the backstory.
Yeah.
And I know, so you had gotten your period back. We're going to go through all that, how you got it back and so forth. But I do recall one day I was like, well, GNic, like, are you sure you can't be pregnant? And you're like, no. And then you come to me and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. Can you just give us like a little inside scoop of how that went down?
Yeah. So I had gotten a couple of recovery periods, but they weren't regular by any stretch. And we went to a fertility clinic to just get some testing done to see if I had made any progress. And, unfortunately, the read that day, the results that I got were that my hormones were still pretty flatlined. And shortly thereafter, maybe a couple weeks later, I was complaining to you that I was getting period symptoms, but that my period wouldn't come and it was like torture, that I was getting the symptoms, but it wouldn't happen. And you said, I want you to take a test. And I was reluctant to, because I had taken quite a few tests over the year and it was getting pretty depressing to keep taking the tests, and feeling like that wasn't really possible. But you insisted, no, if you go a couple more days and you haven't gotten your cycle, I want you to take a test and, schedule time with me. I'll support you through it. So with that in mind, I said, all right, fine, I'll take the test. And I thought the test was dysfunctional. I thought it was a bad test when I first took it. So I took two more, and then I said the whole box must be bad, or maybe I'm reading this wrong. And I called my husband in and said, all right, I need you to do me a favor and let me know if I'm crazy. And he got hysterical laughing. And I looked at him and said, well, what the heck, what do we do? And I didn't know who to call or what to do. So I texted you. I think it was 7 a.m. And thank goodness you answered me straight away. And you said, yes, this is a positive. You need to call your doctor. But you were the very first person that I told. And I'm so grateful that you were awake and willing to respond at that hour.
Oh my gosh. I was just like, I knew it. Like, I just had this like deep feeling that that was going to happen, because it definitely wasn't the first time that this has happened in my career, of being like, no, there's no way. And I'm like, okay, just to be sure, check. And I just want to say also lightly that taking a pregnancy test when you want to be pregnant and getting many negatives, it's not an easy ask for me to ask you, because I know firsthand how that could feel. It's like you want to be pregnant so bad, and it's like you don't want to be disappointed again and again and again. But also, I just want to say it's important, because what if we didn't take the test, right?
Yeah.
We would have carried on like, okay, we got to push harder. We got to get our period, like whatever it may be, like what's wrong with me and why am I feeling all the things. So, so I just wanted to share that, because it's not an easy ask, but you never know what could happen. And you were
I'll also
taking,
say it was important in my case, because my hormone levels were still pretty low across the board. They were able to immediately, start me on the progesterone to support my pregnancy early on, um, which, I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have, maybe it would have been fine, maybe it wouldn't have. But I was able to make sure I was doing the best that I could, as soon as I found out. And I was already 5.5 weeks when I found out, which again was so mind boggling to me, considering we had only done the testing, a couple weeks before. It was pretty wild. But it was great to have you as the first person to tell. And you were the first person that knew for a while.
yes, and so honored to be the first to hear, because it's such a like, oh my gosh, like feeling of wanting to share but not wanting to really share, because you never know, and like all the things. So and I also want to say, with hormones, this is why I'm so encouraging, because anything could happen. Some women get their periods back, some women get pregnant before they get their periods back. It's just amazing how the body works. But just because, say, hormones turned up a certain way, say 2.5 or so weeks before, you never know when you catch those hormones. They can just ebb and flow throughout the day, throughout the weeks. So yeah, it's amazing. And I know, GNic, you feel like it's a miracle, but also you put in some damn hard work to get your cycle back. So we're going to take everybody through of what that looked like. But before, would you give us, or just take us back for a little bit into what life looked like that I guess contributed to you losing your period?
Yeah, for me, actually, it was a pretty distinct moment when my cycle just decided to shut off and not turn back on for 14 years. I was a dancer growing up, did it for fun. Decided to study more professionally when I knew I wanted to actually do it as a professional. Um, Still had regular cycles, but I struggled with the body image because I didn't have the ideal body type, for the type of dance that I was doing. Puberty hit me pretty hard and fast. Um, but, still I maintained a normal cycle because I loved to eat. Eating was a big part of my life. It was a big part of, my family, my culture, my friends. Um, so I continued, with a normal cycle through college, even though I was training quite a lot. I was a dance major in college, trained, was dancing hours and hours every day.
Mm.
But towards the end of my college career, one of my ballet teachers said, listen, you don't have to worry about your body anymore. You look like a dancer. Just go out and audition and go get a job. And so I started on my way with the auditions. And one of my first couple of auditions out, a director in front of hundreds of people, because New York auditions get pretty packed, uh,
Mm.
said that he would love to hire me, said that I had nailed the audition. My technique was beautiful. I was an amazing performer, but he couldn't hire me because I was carrying too much weight on my body. And that was just about the worst thing that I could ever hear. It wasn't that
Mm.
I wasn't good enough of a dancer, but my body was going to keep me from living my dream. And it was a very difficult thing to hear.
Yeah.
It was my worst nightmare come true. And I said to myself, okay, I could either stop right now, call it quits, or do everything in my power to make sure my body is not an issue, not a limiting factor,
Mm.
and give it everything I have. So that day, I made a resolution that my eating was going to change. I was going to start exercising on top of my dancing in a much more intense way. Started running. I was teaching a million Zumba classes a week, still dancing on top of all that. Um, any exercise I could do that I could fit into my day, and I slimmed out quite
Mm.
quickly because of the change in my diet and the extra training. And again, my period just turned off like a light switch
Mm.
at that point. And I didn't think much of it. I kind of knew it was because I was losing some weight. My mother said that that was normal, when you're training like this. Eventually went to a doctor, I don't know, maybe a year and a half into it. They said it was normal. They said, come back to
Yeah.
us when you want to have kids. I think one doctor even said, maybe just try doing more cardio, which
Mm.
looking back was a major facepalm, and
Yeah.
obviously demonstrates, how much there's a lack of knowledge in this area, even
Yeah.
by medical professionals. But yeah, I continued on my way, did eventually dance professionally. Actually, that same director who told me I was carrying too much weight to hire a year later, I nailed the audition again, and in the shape that I was in, hired me, which
Mm.
was a big win. I felt like a real underdog that I had conquered this
Yeah.
beast. But there was a lot of stress that came with performing professionally when I always felt like my weight was going to be an issue.
Mm.
On top of doing 8, 10 shows a week, then having to train on top of that and run on top of that and be so meticulous with my diet. Um, when I was hungry, I was so hungry. I was doing so much physical work and I was starving. It was tough because I was always tired and moody and
Mm.
edgy and just this constant stress of I'm going to lose my job because I'm gonna weigh too much.
Yeah.
And continued to lose weight over the years and um, even after I hung up my dancing shoes and moved over to what the work that I do now, which is totally different. I'm in the corporate world. Um, it, I just felt this need to always be as small as possible.
Mm.
And I did also enjoy training. So that was the tough part too. I just always enjoyed moving my body. So that I loved. I think that the tricky part was minimizing what I ate. Again, because I grew up loving food and that being a big part of my life. But just kind of got used to it over the years and eventually met my husband. We met a little later on in life, but we met in 2020 at the peak of the pandemic. And as we got more and more serious, I started to think, well, okay, I can't keep putting this off or
Yeah.
pretending like this isn't an issue because this person made it very clear to me that he wanted to have children, that that was important to him.
Mm.
Um, And it's funny looking back, there was a time where I think I tried to convince myself that maybe I really didn't want to have kids, that maybe that wasn't that important to me. Cause then I, wouldn't get to do my routine and, um, maybe I'm too selfish to have children. That's not for me. And of course, now looking back in retrospect, that's crazy because there's nothing that has brought me more joy than having my son. So it was a long time coming. When we got married, I knew that I had to do something. I said, I'll wait till after the wedding, which probably shouldn't have done, but I said, I'll wait till after the wedding. And the month that I got married, right after, is when I reached out to you. And I had done a lot of research because I knew I couldn't. I had tried recovering on my own. Couldn't do it. The all-in approach did not work for me. I couldn't go more than a day with that approach. So in any event, I did a lot of research. Your approach resonated with me. Your personal history resonated with me. What you had gone through resonated. So I reached out to you. We had our first intro call, and I started your program shortly thereafter.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for sharing all that with us, GNic. And, I just want to touch upon a couple things of like, sometimes it could take just one moment in our lives to switch us to this place of disconnecting with our bodies,
Yeah.
right? And for you, what I'm hearing, it was like that one comment from the director, right? And that, I don't want to say that was it, but that was first. I just want to say, being in the dance industry, or just being actually being in any kind of industry, just being a woman on this planet,
Yeah.
is freaking hard. We have these standards that we must hold ourselves, or that we've been told that we must hold ourselves to, right? And so that poses a lot of difficulty of who we are trying to become along the way. And so, I think back to my sister-in-law, who was a cheerleader, and her coach told her, like, you gotta drop some weight if, like, you want to continue on the team. And that was a moment for her too.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have these moments, whether we're athletes or not. So I appreciate you being so real and, honest. And at that time, it was just a constant for you. What I'm hearing is like, it was just a constant, like, checks and balances with your eating and disconnecting with your body in times where you were hungry, but you put it off because you were fearful that if you gained weight, you'd lose your job.
Yeah. And, it's funny when I tell people that I work with now that there was a point where I held jobs where it was part of my job to get weighed in every week. That's,
Mhm.
they go, oh, they can't do that. That's not, yeah, in that world they can. And I understand. We were on stage. We were expected to do really hard physical things. We were in costumes that were, revealing of our bodies, and people want to see beautiful bodies on stage. I get it. But to your point, that moment, what it did was validated all the fears that I had had around my body
Mhm.
from the time I went through puberty, that my body
Mhm.
was not okay as it was, that I was too big. Um, and that's, so it's very deeply rooted. It's a tough thing
Yeah.
to get over.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. It was almost like, not like I said, there was one moment. It was almost like that moment was the kinda like the bomb going off, if you will, of potentially what has happened to us as little kids as
Yeah.
well. So this is all some very deeply rooted stuff,
Yeah.
and that one moment really takes us over I guess takes us over the edge, if you will.
Mhm.
So we're not going to spend too much time in what life was like, because I know it was very rigid, very structured, very, like, maybe robotic, if you will,
Uh-huh.
at times, right?
Mhm.
And so we flash forward, we got married, and I heard you say, I maybe shouldn't have waited, until, but here's the thing, like, you only know what you know when you know it, right? You've probably heard me say
Yes.
that so many times. And at that time, it's like, well, I know I need to look the best for my wedding, right? It could
Yeah,
have
I
been
wanted
that,
to
or
feel
like,
my best. The training helped
yeah.
me manage my nerves. Because we like to use the training as an outlet. I don't
Mhm.
smoke, I don't do any kind of recreational drugs, I don't drink alcohol. So for me, that was it. I trained
That
when I
was
was
my thing.
happy, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm nervous.
When I'm
So that
Yeah,
was what
yeah,
I was using it for as well.
yeah, yeah, and I just wanna say there's never a right time for recovery, but, maybe we might give ourselves past advice, but hindsight is 20/20. Like,
Yeah.
we can't go back and be like, "Well, if I knew that," our lives are going to unfold as they should. So, okay, so you knew it was a thing. You did your research. You probably went to many doctors and they were like, okay, one, I know you said when you lost it a while back, okay, just come back and see me when you want to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some of the things that you did? I know I heard you say the all-in approach that you did that was just not for you. Is there anything else you remember doing? And do you feel like you felt like you were doing it all? Or were you kind of like, you know what? No, I need support.
Yeah, there was a time. There was a time when I said, "Okay, I'm gonna try this." I actually, this was long before I met my husband. I was dating somebody who, when I shared with him that I had this condition, that I had HA, and I wouldn't be able to have kids in this current state. Um, he actually stopped seeing me because of that. Um,
Mm.
I said, "Oh, like this is bad. I gotta do something about this." It turns out when I tried to talk to him about it, he also didn't want me to change my body. No, no, your body's perfect the way that it is,
Oh.
but this is ridiculous.
Mm.
Just fix it. Okay. Um, but it was a cue to me that I don't want to lose somebody really special because I don't want to give up my habits and my lifestyle to potentially be
Mm.
able to have children. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to stop running and I'm just going to walk. I'm going to walk and do yoga, which are often seen as the okay exercises in HA
Right.
recovery. But the problem is I replaced my running and my weightlifting with hours of walking and,
Mm.
90-minute vinyasa classes. Um, and I really didn't eat much more. So of course nothing happened. I just became much more skilled with my yoga, which is great. And I had time to
Yeah.
listen to lots of podcasts, but I just replaced one thing with another. And I
Mm.
did that for about, I don't know, a good 6 or 7 months. Um,
Yeah.
Nothing changed. And I said, okay, well, this ain't working. So I might as well go back to the type of exercise that I want to do. And nothing came of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. And if you could go back then and kind of tap into your mind a little bit, what do you think was really what do you think was the scary part of like, all right, well, you made some switch offs, right? Which uh, I can't always say is better because sometimes what we end up doing is switching off, but actually increasing
Yeah.
in our energy output.
Yeah.
And in not only energy output, but our nervous system dysregulation
Yeah.
as well. So do you feel like there was anything there for you that was like, okay, well, I am making this change. It's not what I used to do. Maybe it's less intense, but maybe longer duration.
Yeah.
Do you think there was a fear of doing more?
Yeah, I mean, the fear for me was waking. I was
Mm.
trying to do everything in my power to recover, avoiding the waking. Um,
Yeah.
that was it. If you would have told me I could have rested without gaining weight and ate more without gaining weight, again, I think I would have missed the movement because I love to move my body.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I would have welcomed the rest,
Yeah.
and the ability to eat without thinking about it and without over analyzing everything I put in my body. But it's the fear of waking that was always the driving
Yeah.
factor for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, rightfully so, because weight gain is just not about buying bigger clothes. It's about all those fears that maybe were around puberty. It was around, feeling maybe unworthy because your body was a certain way and not being accepted into, that dance, gig that you were, doing for work. So and probably a million other things as well. So when we say weight gain, it's like, oh, well, to maybe the normal world out there, it's like, oh, well, just gain weight. What's the big deal? It's going to get your period back. It's going to get you healthy, but easier said than done. Right. And so, I want to ask you, aside from the weight gain, was there anything confusing or when it's like, okay, well, I tried to eat a little bit more, I tried to rest a little bit more and change my exercise up? Was there anything confusing for you? And I know the pain was the weight gain, but was there anything like, well, this just doesn't make sense, like,
Oh yeah,
it's going against everything? Yeah.
none of it made sense to me. Because I didn't think I should have HA. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the doctors I went to over the years, and this was when I was getting a little bit more serious with my husband, um, I went into the office and I said, I have amenorrhea. I haven't had a cycle for,
Mm.
9 or 10 years. And he looked at me and he went, "No, you can't have that." And I was a little confused. And he said,
Mm.
"Not thin enough to have amenorrhea." And that was tough because I was running lean at that point. I was
Yeah.
pretty small. I was pretty lean. Um, and to hear that, it, it I couldn't understand, how much smaller do I have to get for this to be valid? And he said, "No, you're
Mm.
just going through early menopause," which of course sent me into a spiral of tears right in his office.
Oh my gosh.
um, and he said, "I'll run the test for you, but you don't have that." He ran the test. He called me back 2 days later and said, "Yeah, so you have amenorrhea. I don't understand. Maybe go eat some cheeseburgers. Come back to me." That
My
was his
God,
response.
GNic.
So zero help there. I none of it made sense. It was very frustrating that I knew people that trained um, as hard as I did, or were leaner than I was and had no issues with their cycle. But granted, you always remind us that we don't know. Maybe they're on birth control and they're getting a fake cycle and they don't actually have a cycle, right? We don't know what's going on, and every woman is different, right? My threshold obviously is different. But the other confusing factor was, and we brought this up during recovery, right, is the attachment to identity of, am I going to lose my identity if I'm not doing the things that I'm used to doing? So for
Yeah.
me, I resonate very strongly with being a disciplined person. That's important to me.
Yeah.
So one of the things we worked on in recovery is, well, how does discipline show up outside of your exercise and your eating in your life? Um,
Mm.
and that was a tough thing to wrap my brain around. Is, am I going to lose who I am? If I
Yeah.
make these changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then who am I without all of that, without the structure and the routine? And yeah, yeah. So it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And I hope as time goes on, more doctors will become educated in
Yeah.
HA just doesn't fit into this pretty little box.
Yeah.
So, and 14, I think you said 14 years without a cycle, right?
Yep, I lost it in 2010, towards the end of
Mm.
2010, and then recovered
Yeah.
before I finished the coaching program with you. I was
Yeah.
a couple months in there, so March of 2024 it was
Yeah.
when I got my
Yeah.
first cycle back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to point out there that it's not always like if you've had it gone for X amount of years, it doesn't mean it's going to take that
Yeah.
amount of time. What does take a little bit of time is, how we're feeling and our behaviors around it. And we'll talk a little bit more about the reality of recovery even after you got a period. It just doesn't just magically go away.
Yeah.
So I heard you say, Gina, when you got married, you knew your husband wanted kids and you started doing some of the recovery process yourself. And what was the point for you that was like, I cannot keep going on this way and trying this myself? Was there a moment that you realized like, this is more than just me implementing more food and less exercise?
Yeah, I think, I had tried different things in the past, and then once I knew I was getting married,
Mm.
I started feeling the pressure of, okay, I've waited all this time to really address this. And my husband and I, are a little older. My husband's a little older than me. I
Mhm.
suddenly realized my window to have children is very small. And now, some people have, they have to try for a while, even if they don't have any issues with their
Mhm.
cycle. So actually, when I got married, I didn't even say, "Oh, I'm going to try for myself by myself again for a while." I knew
Mm.
I needed support. Um,
Mm.
and thank goodness, my husband is just wonderful, and
Mm.
he kept emphasizing to me, "This isn't just about you having children. I want you healthy. I love you, and I want you to be healthy." And I warned him, "Well, my body's going to change. You just married this person, and now my body's going to change. I'm not going to look like I did when we got married." And he did not care. He wanted me healthy.
Mm.
And
Mm.
when I said, "Well, I think I'm gonna find someone who I can hire," I don't care how much I have to spend. And he said, I don't care either. You do that. You get the right support. He said, I'm here to support you, but I don't know what to do or what to tell you.
Yeah.
And he was a huge support through all of that. So it was knowing that I didn't have a lot of time to mess around anymore. I had waited a really long time, and I had to get down to business, and I needed help to do so.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes that nudge of time, but that also creates a little bit of pressure as well, right? There was some pressure there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you being honest about that. And I just want to say, I think GNic, do you mind sharing your age when you
Yeah. So
you
I'm 38 years old today.
yeah,
So when
so
I got married, I was 35. I think I recovered my first cycle
yeah.
just before I turned 36.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I wanted to throw that out there because so many women at the age of their 30s, they will go into the doctor's office and they'll be like, oh, well, you have premenopause or perimenopause or whatever the heck. But we're exhibiting all these behaviors of exercising all the time, eating in a structured, regimented way. Like, if you listen to this podcast and you are no matter what age, because I've had people in their 20s be like, well, my doctor told me like I'm just in menopause early. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyways, but I want to say there's no like age like limit. Now, granted, if you come to me at like close to 60, I might say, okay. But the question comes like, do you, regardless of your period or not, do you still want to live in this way of like constantly controlling and thinking and all the things? So it's more than like your husband said, it was more than just a period and a baby.
Yeah.
It was how, it was your health.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no timeline on becoming a healthier version of yourself. Maybe if you're like 95, okay, like go on, but like, come on, still you might have another 10 years under your belt. And how do you want to live those 10 years? So, I want to know for you, GNic, what felt different for you from what you were doing, like trying to eat more, exercise less, or differently? What felt different about the support that you got inside the program that made this process different than what you were doing?
Yeah. Um, well, the value of a good coach really
Yeah.
is priceless. And I do a different type of coaching in my line of
Yeah.
work. And I'm always striving to be a better coach. But right off the bat, um, I could see what an incredible coach you were, even from our intro call.
Mhm.
And you empowered all of us as members of the program, because we were in a group program, to not do everything at once, but what's one thing that you can do this week to bring you closer
Yeah.
to period recovery, and how you're going to hold yourself accountable to that. And you would help with that, with the
Mhm.
accountability piece. And what was nice about being part of the group was that we held each other accountable,
Yeah.
and we always had a place where we could go to share feelings, thoughts, something that had happened, frustrations, um, at any time, and get support from the group, from you, from any of your other admins, who were wonderful, in working with all of us. So we could go and just share how we were feeling, share what we were going through, and just having that place to go, in those moments where recovery was
Yeah.
just, it just sucked, quite
Yeah.
frankly, was invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you could share, GNic, is there one example that stands out to you when you were just having just a frustrating, tough time where it was just like so nice to be heard and seen and supported and moving forward in the process? Does any one stand out? Was it like trying on different clothes? Was it like someone asking you if you were pregnant when you weren't? Is there anything that stands out to you that was like, oh my gosh, like
Oh goodness. Well, all of those things
like
strike
every moment?
you say it, because I do remember the first time somebody asked me if I was pregnant when I wasn't, when I was in recovery, and that was brutal. But actually,
Mm,
I think the thing that stands out to me is when I was trying to eat more foods that I have not allowed myself to eat for many years. And I remember, I pushed myself to do it, and it's when you think about it, it seems so silly, right? Okay, so you're eating eggplant parmesan. Like, what's the big deal? Like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But the mental spiral that I went through, just doing that, was intense for me, and it was scary. And I remember really leaning into the group, excited that I had tried it and I had done it, but also, okay, now what? All the thoughts that follow that. Um, and I remember, having the support of the group saying, this is great. This is a good step. This is going to help get you closer to your goal of period recovery and, um, eventually pregnancy. That was really helpful in that moment for something that seemed to be such a silly thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so support was just so integral, and especially the scariest moments.
Oh yeah.
And do you think, aside from, because I'm a firm believer, anyone going through anything, like, just get the support from someone that has expertise in that.
Yes.
But also, what about like the structure around eating and resting from what you were doing?
Yeah.
What do you think was a big missing piece for you?
Um, I mean, quite frankly, I needed to eat more food. And using, the period recovery plate made me realize how far off I really was with how I was eating. I do remember one of the first steps you had me take, as well, in terms of movement, was cutting cardio, point blank. Totally wiped out cardio. That was wild. I had so much more time in my days. Um, but you said, okay, keep the weightlifting for now.
Mm.
Cut out the cardio, and that was scary. That was really
Yeah.
scary. Um, but yes, I think it was just putting more food on my plate that wasn't
Mm.
vegetables, and upping the carbs was a big thing that I had to do, because I had, for some reason, in my head, thought that the least amount of carbs, the better, or that was something I really had to watch. And it's funny thinking back to how much I was exercising over the years. I mean, goodness, there was a point where I was running, 7, 8 miles a day, and I was
Yeah.
still so frugal with my carbs, and wondering why I wasn't making progress with my build, with my performance, with my muscle gain. Well, gosh, my body couldn't do anything at that point. It was just
Yeah.
trying to survive, with what I was doing to it. So, in any event, those were big movers that we started with, early on.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you're sharing that. It's not just about like, okay, this is how meals should look like and how your exercise should look like, but it's unraveling a lot of the very deeply ingrained thoughts that have been around for years
Yeah.
alongside. And that's what makes recovery stick. That's what brings pregnancy about. That's what brings more periods and a more freer life, because I can imagine, and we were talking pre-show, and GNic had mentioned, like, I still feel like I have some work to do. And I want to say, well, of course, period, or you don't just get your period back, have a baby, and like you're just voila. Like, it is all gone. We don't have the thoughts anymore. But what I want to say is, what do you think about the woman you were and the woman you are now? And granted, we're perfectionists here. So it's like, well, I'm not fully recovered, or, I'm still having the thoughts. And it's like, well, of course, we're going to have some thoughts, but the woman you were and the woman you are now, what feels most different?
I still feel like me. I still work as hard as I did, but I work hard now at different things.
Hmm.
Um, and all of the value I was trying to get from having my body be perfect and be that person who was in the best shape, the most disciplined all the time, nonstop, no off days, no off season. Um, I could never quite get there. It was never enough.
Hmm.
And now, when I hold my baby in my arms, It's enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I don't have hard days where I wish I could go run 7 miles again and hit the gym for 2 hours a day. Because again, I love that. I love that life. Um, None of it compares. And I'm proud of what I went through because it got me where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so beautifully said. And I wish I could give you a big hug right now because it is such a it's like, I'm still me, but also what used to be so meaningful to me and thought that was the driver of life
Yeah. Yep.
was just not. And so, what would you say to the woman listening who sees herself in your story? Because let me tell you,
Yeah.
there's more than one out there.
First of all, it's never too late. For me, getting a cycle back after 14 years was pretty outrageous. It's never too late. And give yourself your best chance. One of the things that you said to me when I really couldn't delete my cycle, I was having trouble getting it, to be a proper cycle length, and I got the bad test results. You said, you know what, GNic, you're still holding on to the exercise. Just give it everything so that even if you never have a baby, you can at least look back and say that you gave it your all. And there'll be a time when you can train again and do all these. This is not forever. And it's so funny because when we had that conversation, I said, okay, that's it. I'm giving it up. I'm giving up the training. I was already pregnant at that time and I didn't know it.
Mm.
Yeah. It was kind of funny how that worked. But you got to go through it because I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have gone through the recovery process and somehow had gotten pregnant. How would I've handled pregnancy and the aftermath of all that? If I was still doing what I was doing before. So give it all you got, and get the right support. Get the right
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, you know, recovery it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
And even though we're not perfect, we're
Yeah.
not put on this earth to be perfect, right? But you've made so much beautiful progress and I'm sure, were able to enjoy your pregnancy 10 times more than you would have if you got pregnant 10 years earlier, right? And
Yes.
so I always like to say it's either divine timing, God's timing, whatever, you believe in,
Yeah.
and it will happen when it's supposed to. Of course, we have to take the aligned action of nourishment and rest, and nervous system regulation and looking at things that might be really painful to look at.
Yeah.
But with the right support, I think with anything in life, you can get through it.
Yeah.
So,
You know that I'm quite religious, so I do believe that God granted us a miracle, but he opened the door. I would not have been able to walk through that door if it was not for your support.
thank you, GNic.
Yeah.
Well, without you doing the hard work of the tools that I put forth, because it is, I want to give myself credit because, yes, I have a gift to share, but also I want all the women out there that either work with me directly or have worked with me directly or indirectly that you're doing some hard stuff. I don't have a magic wand. I don't. I'm still trying. No, there's just no magic wand, so also give yourself credit because we don't, as women, I think in general, and sometimes I'm guilty of it myself, we don't give ourselves enough credit for the hard work that we're doing in this life that is not always so easy. So yeah. So GNic, I want to thank you again for being here and sharing your story. And I just am so excited to put this out into the world because it is going to bring so much light to so many women going through this struggle. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
To all the amazing women out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Take a moment to reflect on what resonated and how you can start applying it to your own recovery journey.
I truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and listening to the podcast. I know there are so many podcasts and resources out there, and it means the world to me that you're choosing to spend this time with me. If you're looking for more support on your recovery journey, visit my website, periodnutritionist.com. And if this episode supported you, it would mean the world to me, again, if you just subscribed, left a review, or shared it with another woman who needs to hear this. The more we talk about missing periods and fertility, the more women we could support. Are you ready to get your period back and step into the woman you were meant to be? I'll see you in 2 weeks.